Life is precious, and we all have the opportunity of living it to the fullest. Unfortunately, so few of us know how to manage it all. How do we account for our opportunities? How do we account for our time? How do we account for our relationships, health, spirituality, homes, finances, influence, and careers? How do we account for the one life we have to live? I am so glad you asked. In this program, you will find answers to all of these questions and more. Welcome to the Account for Your Life podcast with your host, the healthy accountant himself, Jay Moore.
What's happening, everybody? I want to welcome you back to another episode of the Account for Your Life podcast. This is Jay Moore, the healthy accountant, helping you to account for your life. Man, today, here's what we're going to talk about. Man, God winked at me. God gave me a wink. I'm going to share with you a story, something that happened, and I'm just excited about purpose, excited about, look, not just purpose, kind of like, man, when you get to the point where you just kind of know why you're living, that's an amazing place to be in life. So I just want to give a shout out to God, give a shout out to the Most High, give a shout out to the one who's created everything, and give a shout out to the power that he's imparted into all of us. So I'm going to jump right into this because man, it's Friday. It's Friday, man. It's Friday. It's an exciting day. And, 2 nights ago, I may have partly shared some of this, but I'm going to go ahead and share it again, I think. So 2 nights ago, I was getting ready for bed, and I started talking to God, just talking, hey, what's going on? What's happening? About to go to bed, and what do you have for me tomorrow, and stuff like that. And when Jesus prayed, he prayed to ask God, well, where are you sending me tomorrow? What is it that I need to see? And and so I'm sitting there just talking to God, and I say, hey, God, can you give me a wink tomorrow? I literally asked for that. I said, hey, can you give me a wink? And now earlier this week, what were we talking about? We introduced, and I don't know that I've talked a lot about purpose on the podcast, but we introduced purpose. And that day, I believe I called it, Where's My Purpose? What you should never do when looking for your purpose. And that day, I think it's interesting because the reason for our existence, you, me, like not the world and, not other things and people, but the reason I was born, right? The reason you were born, the reason I was born is significant. And so I asked God to wink at me the next day, and I'm at the gym, and all of a sudden something happens. A story is revealed. Now, back on August the 15th of 1971, President Richard Nixon had to come on TV, and he had to talk to the American public. At the time, there was a problem happening. It was just like right now. Inflation is high, money is kind of going crazy. Folks are getting worried about whether or not they'll have what they need. Same thing was happening in 1971. Now, ironically, I was born in 1971, but this is August. I wasn't born yet. August 1971, Richard Nixon comes on, and they called it I can't remember what they called it. It was the introduction. It was the introduction of what they called the creation of the Bretton Woods system, right? But Richard Nixon ended the convertibility of the U.S. dollar to gold and announces wage and price controls. That was from an article back in August of 1971. How did I get there? I was at the gym, listened to YouTube, and a different video came into the next video coming up. Now, when I asked God to give me a wink, I don't know how God's going to wink at me. I don't know. See, at the end of the day, that's the interesting thing. Why did that video come into my feed that day? It had nothing to do. I'm not going to say it. YouTube and these algorithms are weird. They're interesting. Artificial intelligence are interesting. He'll probably interested in that. But here's the thing, part of that's God too. God knows how to curate the information just for you. He knows how to present what it is that he'd like for you to know and what he'd like for me to know. And that 2 days ago, his desire was to show me, hey, check this out. Check this out. If you didn't know, this will help you to really know. And what was happening that day? Similar to today. There's an issue, there's problems, there are issues with money. Inflation is high. People are worried about value. I want you to think about this. Most people are worried about the value. Most people are worried about, man, am I going to be able to make enough money? Most people are worried about this prosperity system that we have when what God showed me, when he winked at me, when he says, hey, take a look at this. What he showed me, he says, look, no one, there wasn't really a prayer that was made that day, but it was an answer that he knew would need to be addressed. And there it was, October 19th, 1971, I was born. Now, someone recently said to me, this is Jay, you were born in October, and the number 10 in the Hebrew means order, right? 10 commandments, order. And so here it is. I was born at the right time. Now, check this out. I'm just giving you some context there. Check this out. When Jesus was born, he was born at the fullness of time. What did that mean? It was the right time for him to be born. Now, could Jesus have been born earlier? Absolutely. But as I'm reading and discovering, what I've discovered is that the right time had not come because the people that were in power, the kings that were in the system that God had appointed, they would not conform. They didn't conform. God wound up having to look at an outside system. Think about this. God looked at the outside system. What was the outside system? He had to look at the Romans. He says, oh, shoot, the Romans are doing exactly what we do here in heaven. That's the closest thing. That's the closest form of government to our form of government. Now we can insert ourselves, because when Jesus goes to speak about what it is that he was born to speak about, purpose, it won't be foreign, because people were living in a colony. They were living under the rule of a kingdom. Why is it so hard right now for people to understand kingdom? Why? Well, because you got communism, you've got the you got democracy, you got socialism, you got these forms of government that don't mirror the kingdom. And so when you talk about religion, when you talk about, what do we believe in? And then we get the laws of the democracy, and then we look at the laws of the kingdom. We're like, well, guys, if you don't understand the kingdom, there's no, you would just go with democracy. Democracy, I would say democracy was an okay form of government. It wasn't bad. Now, what's happened is a lot of things have changed in the recent years with the types of laws that has been created. And those laws that have been created within democracy are opposed. They are opposing to what the kingdom is. See, most people won't even study. Most people won't even study. Like most Christians, they go to church. They just get the word. Man, I got to get the word today, man. If I don't get a good word, man, then it's not a good church. I remember when I got to Kingdom, and that's when I realized I could go to church. I don't need a word. Why? Because I've already discovered the kingdom. And because I discovered the kingdom, I don't need any extra motivation. No, I'm not saying that people don't need words, because people need direction. Just like I'm here to give direction. I'm here to say, look, the most important thing you should focus on is your purpose. The most important thing you should focus on is how to account for your life. The most important thing you should be looking at is not some of the things that you've learned, but some of the things that you need to learn, some of the things I needed to learn. I didn't want to talk to you. I didn't want to talk. I'm not trying to talk at you. I'm really talking to myself. That's why this podcast is just kind of like me going through my own life. I was talking to my brother yesterday, and him and my other brother Joe was together, and they was talking about me, good way. They weren't talking bad. And so he was just like, he says, man, he says, it's crazy that he says, man, you got balls to go on a video, to have a podcast, to have a show, to always be talking about how to account for your life. And you're doing it. He says, man, I ain't there. I said, you don't have to be there. I wasn't there. I did not show up ready. So back to October the 19th, 1971, August 1971. Like, here it is. Here it is. The value of something had been diminished. What's that? The dollar had been diminished. Right now in 2022, what's happening? The dollar is being diminished. So what is it? Where can we find the most value? The value is what you've been walking around with, what I was walking around with. I was walking around with a solution to a big problem happening right now. It took me 51 years to get to right now. And in getting to right now, I'm looking around like, well, I'm like, but Lord, you have to do this because here's the problem. It's like most people are afraid of accounting in their business. They know they need it. Most people are afraid of accounting. Now, when you talk about account for your life, they're really afraid of it. Lord, how are you going to make it so that people will say yes to what it is you already have planned? How are you going to do that? Because I don't know how to do it. Seriously. Like, I'm sitting here's and for the one person, the two people that watch the podcast on a regular basis, because I'm like, Lord, I mean, people have been ignoring this podcast. I'm on episode 566, 67 episodes in. And there were about 400 episodes before I started the actual podcast. It was called the Enlightenment Series. I did it on my other Facebook page. I did it on my business Facebook page. I'm almost 1,000 videos and podcasts in. I'm like, Lord, like, seriously. But that's the part that when God has you doing what it is that you have to do, you don't control when the time is right. I think that's the point of today. You don't control when the time is right. God knows when the time is right. He's saying the fullness of time is coming right now. That's what he's telling me. He's telling me right now, you must prepare, you must do, you must put into process the things that's needed so that when the people come running in, you are ready. See, God, your purpose for your life, yes, it's predestined, meaning it has to be predestined. Why? Because if you just look around, if I look around and I've got a computer, I'm talking to the camera, which is actually I'm using a separate camera. So I got a Logitech 4K camera on the computer, which is separate. So that means the Logitech camera is made just for pictures and video. It's not made for anything else. Now, the computer, however, is made for multiple things. The computer has a camera on it, but I'm not using it. The computer has all these other softwares on it. The computer has all these things that I can do on it. Now, the computer is made for something totally different. But here's the thing. Isn't the computer and the camera predestined for what it was created for? It's predestined. A lot of times folks say, well, no way. There's no way there's a predestined. Yes, there is a way. You and I were predestined. The birth date that you have is a predestined time because God is like, well, that time is when that product will be created. And because that product is created, it's for this purpose. Here's the big problem. I'm going to let you go right after I give you the big problem because we'll be back tomorrow. I got plenty of time to do all these podcasts. And the big problem is this. You have been duped. You have learned the wrong systems. And because you've learned the wrong system, because I learned, no, not you, me, that is about me. I've learned the wrong systems. And because I've learned the wrong systems, it's almost virtually impossible for you and me to discover our purpose. It's almost virtually impossible. All right, here's the good news, because I have the good news. See, when you ask, when you stop and say, wait a second, if I don't know my purpose, what should I do? What should I say? How should I respond? Then the first thing is, well, what is it? That's what I asked my son just 2 days ago. Say, son, we're going to talk about this every day. What's your purpose? I don't know. Okay, keep asking. What's your purpose? I don't know. Keep asking. Because here's the thing. It would be a tragedy if we lived our life with a purpose, predestined to actually be your purpose. Your purpose is for you. Meaning your purpose will provide for you. What's happening, PB? Your purpose is everything. But we live our lives based on the systems that we've been taught. And because those systems are so loud, and because we live in a culture, guys, the culture, if this was a kingdom, it has a culture, and it has systems that force us to learn how it works. And because it forced us to learn how it works, then those things typically overwrite the programs that are predestined on your machine. And because they overwrite the programs that's predestined on those machines, then it's almost virtually impossible for those programs to work. So when God winked at me and he showed me, he says, look, when money was being devalued, I saw you. I saw you, son. And you are a solution. But here's the thing, son. Will you accept that call? Because when you accept the call, guys, that's when all hell breaks. That's when all hell breaks loose. That's the truth. That's all I know. All hell will break loose. And if all hell will break loose, then that means we have to look at what's happening. Hey, what's happening? Nisi, how are you? We have to look at what's happening. And we have to realize that is for my good. Whatever's happening around us is for the good of our life and our purpose. Guys, there's so much that I can share. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm here every day. So I'll be back tomorrow. We'll share a little bit more, and we'll continue the path of how to account for your life. Guys, I'm Jay Moore. That's why I was created. I was created for this purpose, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Peace.
Thanks for joining us, listening friends. We are so glad you invested this time with us. Always remember, you only have one life to live. So live it to the fullest. This has been the Account for Your Life podcast with your host, the healthy accountant himself, Jay Moore. Until next time, make it a great day.